Weight Watchers now offers access to affordable GLP-1s. It works for members like,
I'm Haley, and I've lost 100 pounds. Weight Watchers has everything I need, from weight loss medications to nutrition support and help with my side effects. It's all in one place.
Weight Watchers handles the insurance for you and offers affordable cash pay options. With our program, our members are losing more weight with expert nutrition and side effect support.
I'm Mike, and I've lost 135 pounds. Weight Watchers prescribing GLP-1 medications. It's been life-changing.
I'm Sharia, and I lost 80 pounds on Weight Watchers. I realized that it would take more than a prescription to lose weight and feel good on a GLP-1.
Better results, expert support, lose more weight, make it last.
I can't imagine doing a GLP-1 without Weight Watchers.
Get started for as low as $25 at weightwatchers.com/GLP1. For over 60 years, we've helped millions of members find what works for them. Now, it's your turn. Weight Watchers. Watch it work.
Yeah, whoa! I'm okay. Hey, do you love adventure? Do you love outdoor sports? Would you like to learn more and hear from amazing adventure athletes from all over the world? If so, then check out the Adventure Sports Podcast. We've been the premier platform for sharing adventure for more than 10 years now. We help you get your adventure on. Look for the Adventure Sports Podcast wherever you find your podcasts. Get out there and have some fun.
About achievement. They called you when they got you to believe it. Thumb and finger held to their foreheads in an L shape, trapped in a capitalist hellscape. Let's fight back and have some talks about class and the massive cost of the disastrous plots of fascists and Nazis, fat cats and fogs. It's 1,000 natural shocks. A Bad with Money podcast.
Hello and welcome to 1,000 Natural Shocks, a Bad with Money podcast. I'm your host, Gabe Dunn. And with me today, we have a stirring recommendation from Allison Raskin, who had you on her podcast and said you were great. So can you tell my audience who you are and what you do?
Wow, I get around, don't I? Hi, everyone. I'm Emily Ladau. I am a disability rights activist and an author of a book called Demystifying Disability: What to Know, What to Say, and How to Be an Ally.
When did that book come out?
So it came out in 2021, and
Wow.
I have a revised edition coming out at the end of this year.
I was going to say, yeah. So can you talk a bit about what's changed or what you had to revise since 2021? Because 2021 is such a specific time.
Yeah, so it was really interesting because I got the book deal in 2019, and I started the heavy writing process at the end of that year. And then I was like, oh, I'm just going to be the writer in the coffee shops and everything's going to be adorable. And even though we're not in the best of times, it's not the worst of times. And then suddenly it was the actual worst of times. And I finished the book in the corner of my living room. And it was really challenging because I couldn't cover a lot about the ongoing pandemic when the pandemic had really just started. And I didn't know yet what all of the implications were going to be for the disability community. A book just captures one moment in time. And by the time I finished my manuscript, that was months before it came out in 2021. And now for the revised edition, I needed to tackle so much of what's going on, everything from the impacts that ICE is having specifically on the disability community to the impact of, for example, the quote unquote One Big Beautiful Bill Act and what it's going to do to healthcare for so many people who live in the United States. So there was just a lot that needed to be recontextualized about history. And history is always happening, but I wanted to at least do the best I can to explain to people that things are changing for everyone and for the disability community.
It's been pretty interesting. I mean, we would be skipping ahead a bunch, but I did a video where I was doing an experiment on covering my face. And it ended up being that I was able to get away with a lot because I think I was being perceived as an ICE agent and perhaps also like way more male, cis male than I am. And so, but I had some discussions in the comments about that it was, so hard to get people to wear masks. And then now it's like they want the option to, or they want it to be that federal agents can mask all the time if they want. And so there was like some discussion from disabled creators in my comments, which I found really interesting about that dichotomy and how that's really like fuck shit up.
The hypocrisy is so loud and clear now. And this is something else that I needed to update because I have a section on disability etiquette in the book. And I had nothing about masking because it wasn't something that we were really talking about when I had finished the manuscript. And now I needed to talk about it, but it's complex, not just from a political standpoint, although all healthcare is really political, but also because there's a lot of nuance within the disability community about masking. And some people are not able to mask, whether for sensory reasons or because it creates a communication barrier for people who rely on lip reading. Other people need to be masked because they're immunocompromised, and that's the only way that they can safely occupy an indoor space. So there's quite a bit of complexity just within the disability community. And then you widen that lens to the fact that now suddenly we want masking for the people whose identities we need to be protecting, which no, we don't. And all the disabled people are like, we've been asking for masking for safety purposes the whole time. So you don't get to use our safety for your agenda. But of course,
Right.
That's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah. How did I'm sure you were not surprised when the pandemic started and it seemed like it became clear that one of the things that people needed to do was just do a favor for disabled people or older people. And they simply could not achieve that. I know that's probably like a triggering subject, but can you talk about like your experience of watching that play out?
I think there's a level of selfishness that everybody has, and it's amplified when you don't yet have the experience of being disabled because you think to yourself, that's not relevant to me and I'm never going to have that experience. Humans have this idea that they are infallible and invincible, and the reality is that everybody's going to experience disability at some point in their life, whether temporarily or permanently. So when I think back to how adamant people were that the fates of disabled people were not their problem, I just wanted to shout, first of all, we're the world's largest minority. There's more than 1 billion people. So if you're not disabled yet, then somebody that you care about is. And if you don't think it's relevant to you now, you could very well contract COVID and then it could become relevant to you. Mm-hmm. So really, you're not thinking about this clearly. You're just thinking about it in a very sort of in the moment way that doesn't recognize how everybody's lives are intertwined. So for me, I just struggle deeply, deeply with the selfishness. And, even now, I don't think there's a right answer on masking etiquette. I think it's deeply personal, contextual, situational, but I don't think that any disabled person is wrong for asking you to care about their life.
Yeah, at the bare minimum. What other etiquette is included in your book?
A lot of it is really just about being your usual self and not talking down to disabled people and not making assumptions that you know what's best for disabled people. My cousin's uncle's brother's turtle tried hot yoga and it solved all of their problems. So maybe you should try that too. And then also just the idea that people tend to really get in the personal space of disabled people in a lot of cases and push help on them and their assumptions on them without waiting for the disabled person to exercise their basic autonomy and say, yes, I need help, or no, I don't need help. So much of it is just about not treating disabled people like delicate flowers, but just recognizing the humanity of disabled people. And that much is evergreen, regardless of how much things have changed just in the past 4 to 5 years. Treat disabled people like you would treat anybody else.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, few friends of mine that are They're not ambulatory wheelchair users. They're always in a wheelchair. They're like, it's just my legs. People talk to me like I don't know words, like I'm an infant, versus like I just I just don't use my legs. Like, what is the
There's so much infantilization of disabled people and just looking at disabled people as though we cannot express what it is that we need. And the reality is that there are so many different types of disabilities.
Right.
And so often I've actually had, intellectual disability sort of pitted against physical disability in a hierarchical sense where
Right.
people will say, oh, well, your legs don't work, but your mind is fine. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
regardless, I would really love it if you would speak respectfully to me, whether I'm physically disabled or intellectually disabled. But
Yeah.
people just seem to lump all disabled people together into one boat. And that's under the assumption that all of us need to be treated like we are
children.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm coming to this realization now, talking to people and also in therapy after years and years, that I'm on the autism spectrum and I have dealt constantly with like, why do people talk to me like I'm dumb? Like, I don't understand, and project so much onto me and feel really offended by my like existence when I haven't said anything. And like, what about me creates this thing where people want to see that I'm amazing and talented, but then also in a like social or personal or societal way treat me like I don't know basic things. And I keep coming back to like, maybe it is tied to the autism because it's been happening my whole life, where people will say things like, oh, you're really, like, people who are trying to manipulate me, they would be like, you're so smart, you just don't know how to do this basic thing, but that's okay because you're a savant in this way, so don't worry, like, you're doing laundry wrong, you're doing dishes wrong, you're doing, like, that's not how you talk to people. And I keep being like, is it just like this uncanny valley? They have like the autism uncanny valley where it's like, it's true, I read about it. It's where people like see you and you're a person, but there's something off, that they're not getting person from you. And so they need to do something about that. The amount of times that people have arguments with me where I've said absolutely nothing, where there's like an assumption of what my opinion will be. So they're arguing with like a version of me that doesn't exist. And I keep coming back to like, I don't realize anything that I'm saying is combative because I'm asking one singular follow-up question. And I've just been really like, I'm 37. I'm like becoming hyper aware of the way that people come at me in like a love bombing way, but then treat me like a pet almost.
Yeah. I feel this deeply. First of all, welcome to the Neurodivergent Club officially. I have my little neurospicy sticker on my water bottle. I don't identify as autistic, but I definitely identify as neurodivergent and have ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
So, everybody identifies as disabled in some way at some point. And,
I never thought it was, but now I'm like, what the hell? Is that why everyone's mad at me all the time? Jesus Christ.
It adds a lot of clarity, I think, when you start to understand how people are perceiving you. But if people aren't, as you said, getting quote unquote person vibes from you, that's entirely on their arbitrary notion of what a person is supposed to act like or think like or communicate like. And I think that has been one of the biggest things that I try to explain to people is we need to be meeting each other where we are, and we need to be letting go of these assumptions about what a person should quote unquote be like. Nobody should be like anything. Every person should be like how they are. And I think people get very caught up in these perceptions of, are they acting a certain way? Are they communicating a certain way? Are they moving a certain way? Are they being a certain way in public? And it's like, who decided that was how we were all supposed to be?
Who decided? Like, it's so, yeah, I think people are I think the one of my biggest problems with, it's not even like portraying disability in films, but like some of the most incredible filmmakers are so stuck on disabled is a cue for scary. We don't even have to add villainy to this person because we've given them different kind of hands, or we've given them a face that's sort of disconcerting to people, instead of actually saying, why is that happening? Why is that shortcut usable? The movie Eddington. Did you see Eddington?
I haven't, but I know what you're talking about.
The comeuppance, sorry for people who haven't seen Eddington. The comeuppance at the end is that he's paraplegic. That's the comeuppance. Like, what? And it happens so often, and there's this fixation on it, and it's never treated with neutrality. Like, it's value neutral. Whether somebody is disabled or not, to me, and this might be the autism speaking, I'm like, it's value neutral. Who cares? It's not like, it doesn't make them inspirational. It doesn't make, and sorry to people who want to be inspirational, it doesn't make them inspirational, and it doesn't make them less than. It's just a trait.
You're touching on so many of the really common tropes that just drive me absolutely bananas, because I don't exist to inspire people, but also somehow my disability is tragic at the same time. So I'm an inspiration, I'm tragic, I'm scary. I mean, I'm helpless, I'm an infant. Like, there's just so many narratives that are pushed on us all at once. And, my family and I like to joke that there's nothing inspirational about me being disabled or getting out of bed in the morning unless you know that I'm not a morning person, in which case it is extremely inspirational that I got out of bed.
Very brave.
Yeah, I faced this day. I got out of bed. But I mean, other than that, like, I think the thing about disability is that it's so reduced to these tropes in the media that people internalize them and then push them back out in their interactions with disabled people, whether they know that that person is disabled or not. We've just had it so ingrained in our minds. This is how we treat certain people who present in certain ways. And we very much learn what we live, and we act on what we see in the media. So the media is largely responsible for how people engage with disabled people.
Huge.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by, I've talked to Phillida Swift of the Face Equality UK, and I'm fascinated by that whole project, because it is like, how many times I just watched Casino Royale, and part of Mads Mikkelsen's thing is he has a scar over his eye. Ooh, he's a villain. I'm like, how did he get that? Someone threw a card? Like, I don't understand. So like, it's been really interesting seeing stuff from them, because we've been so trained to and in a lesser sense, whatever blankness I have on my face that people don't like, it's like, oh, this person has a scar, this person's eye is different, whatever. And so it's just the automatic response is like this fear, this uncanny valley. I almost witness people treat it like it might be contagious.
That is a big one, especially for me, because I'm a wheelchair user. When people see me in public, there's this reaction like, she's gonna run you over,
What?
Get out of her way. Oh yeah, I mean, I would say parents are probably the biggest proponent of this.
I know.
They like yank their child out of the way. And I've had parents literally say, get out of her way or she's gonna run you over. And I'm like, you're stoking the fear in their mind. So now, instead of that's just a person and the polite thing
Holy
to do
shit.
is move over, you are treating me like I'm the bad guy. So we're just reinforcing the stereotypes. But this happens to me constantly. I wish I had $1 for every time that it happened, because I would donate it to like a mutual aid fund or something.
Jesus. I want to also shift to the thing about how anyone could become disabled at any time, which I've talked about so often, and you will become disabled because you will become elderly. But so I also have fibromyalgia, which I got diagnosed with last year. And it started where my hands and arms just went numb. Well, it started with one of my legs, my thigh, which I was like, whatever, it's a thigh, who needs it? But then my arms and hands went numb. And there's like a period where it was so confusing because I couldn't open jars and I couldn't hold my keys and everything. Just one of the big things that I had to do was just accept that, like, I need to go slower. Like, if I'm gonna put a sock on, I can't just be putting socks on as I leave. I have to sit down. And the resentment of like going to the doctor and having the doctor talk to you like an idiot, like you're an idiot. Or there was, I also felt like it was like a big scam. Like they'd send me to like these different people where it was like, what are you going to do? And then I would meet with them and they'd go, yeah, I don't know. Like, I was like, why am I here? It was really like a 5 stages of grief year. And so that's where I keep pushing people. I'm like, that could happen at any time. I woke up and my hands were numb. Like, I didn't have, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you're not exempt.
Yeah, I think this hits home for me, especially because even though I was born with my physical disability, it's not technically progressive in any way, but being physically disabled and then also being in an aging body now that I'm in my mid 30s, I am in some way experiencing effects of it that I hadn't previously. And so I am arthritic like your grandma, and I have all kinds of muscle pain and spasms, and act of getting dressed was never easy for me, but now it's like an Olympic sport just to get dressed. And I feel that similar frustration that you are expressing, where I'm like, okay, it took me this long to get ready. Now it takes me this long to get ready. And that's infuriating because I have to readjust my schedule so that I'm still ready at the same time.
Yeah.
And, see earlier comment about not liking getting out of bed in the morning. And so I am, in a way, also grieving my body and what's changing. And I think that we as a society have not figured out how to make space yet for the fact your body and you can struggle with the disability experience, but that does not mean that you should treat disability with disrespect. There's a difference between navigating it within your own body and empathizing with people as they are going through physical and cognitive and mental changes, and then being unkind to somebody because of it. And I think that that's where the breakdown happens.
Yeah. Because do you think it's from fear? Like, again, when I said contagious, like, people are scared.
Oh, totally. Nobody wants to be confronted with their own mortality. I mean, when people look at me, I know I've quite literally gotten comments where they're like, if I were you, I would kill myself. And
what the fuck? That is like...
like, thank you. I mean, I resent that so deeply. And I also kind of understand it. I'm not giving people a free pass, but I am saying that because we've been socialized to think about disability as a negative thing, and because we currently live in a world where access to supports and services and healthcare is so limited, if it's available at all, yeah, I kind of get why you're afraid to become disabled. But the answer to that is not to be horrible to disabled people.
Yeah.
It's to fight for these things so that if you become disabled, even if you're only doing it in your own selfish interest, the world will be better for you when it happens to you.
Yeah. The idea of what a successful life is so contingent on what you produce or what you create. This girl is she got in a skiing accident and she became a paraplegic, but now she paints with her mouth. Who fucking cares? I mean, good for her, but like, she doesn't have, like, there's no, like, it's always like, you can't just exist. If they don't have something that they start doing and it wasn't like worth it or something, or didn't make them better, or didn't make them an inspirational speaker or whatever it is, then I think that transition is harder than if you were already born disabled, because there's a question in people's heads where they go, well, what would I do if I lost my arms? And it's like, well, this girl's had no arms the whole time, so she figured it out.
Oh, yeah. I have seen so many of those very clickbaity reels and headlines where it's like, this person was in a tragic accident and now they are a motivational speaker who is able to underwater basket weave with their big toe. And I'm like, incredible.
Cool.
Really great. But also, your humanity should not be dependent on some kind of special skill that you develop. I also think that we have to remember sometimes people develop these skills as coping mechanisms because they need to exist in a world where they're not welcomed warmly. So I understand that. And then there's this pressure to turn it into something because you want people to still see that you are a human being.
Right.
And I wish that we stopped setting these really arbitrary standards for what it means to be a human being. If you are living, if you are breathing, if you are existing, you don't need to meet somebody else's bar.
Yeah, it's contributing to society. Or even I think about like, oh, this person is disabled, they'll never X, Y, and Z. Did they even want that? Like,
Yes.
who cares? I mean, not who cares, but you know what I mean? It's like when people have, I can't judge this 'cause I don't have an autistic child, but when people have this thing where they're like, oh, I just thought I would walk them down the aisle one day. It's like, okay, did they even want to be married?
Right, exactly. We have these sort of milestones that every person needs to meet. But then it's also fascinating because
Hiring isn't just about finding someone willing to take the job. I need the right person with the right background who can move our business forward. If I wanted candidates who match what I'm looking for, I'd trust Indeed sponsored jobs. I actually found my job on Indeed, and it was so easy to search through what I wanted to do and my skills and find the right place that was looking for exactly what I could offer. Hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post even seen on other sites. Give your job the best chance to be seen with Indeed sponsored jobs. They help you stand out and hire quality candidates who can drive the results you need. Sponsored jobs boost your post for quality candidates so you can reach the exact people you want faster. And it makes a big difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs because you reach a bigger pool of quality candidates. Join the 1.6 million companies that sponsor their jobs with Indeed. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. Now with Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/badwithmoney. Just go to Indeed.com/badwithmoney right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/badwithmoney. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Do it the right way with Indeed.
we treat people like it's amazing that they've achieved those milestones. So they put these milestones on you as an expectation. And if you reach them, then you're somehow like the pinnacle of inspiration. And this has especially happened to me around getting married. That was a big one where people are like, oh my God, it's so amazing that you found someone who accepts you for who you are and who takes care of you. And I'm like, make up your own narrative in your head, but we take care of each other, okay? Like, and it's not that amazing. I did what everybody else did. I went through hell on the dating apps until I found someone.
Yeah, or that he's some sort of saint and you're like, I know a bunch of shit that he does that I fucking hate. Like,
Tell me about it. Yeah, I mean, and also, so my mom is disabled too. She has the same disability that I do, and my dad does not have a physical disability. And so I grew up with that narrative of, your dad is a saint because he takes care of you and your mom. And, people literally called him Saint Mark to our face. And it was just so exhausting to have that drilled into my head. And then as soon as I met my husband, people started doing the same thing. And I'm like, there's two people in this relationship.
Right. I mean, the idea also that we get fed by it's so funny how many things we get fed by mainstream media that are actually tragic. Like where they're like, oh, this mom is working at McDonald's in her 8th month of pregnancy and she's employee of the month. And they'll do like what a heartwarming story. I'm like, is it heartwarming? So they'll be like, this girl was burned and her fiance stayed with her. Okay. She also couldn't like him. He might have done some bad shit. We don't know.
You're hitting on like one of my biggest pet peeves. There's kind of two aspects of this. The first is when I remember reading an article about a disabled person who went to, I think it was like a Qdoba Mexican place, and someone cut their food for them. And there was a viral article about it. And it was like, this kind stranger cut this person's food for them. And I was like, did anybody ask you to take photos of this and put it online? Like, can't we just be nice to each other sometimes? And then also, the other thing that really upsets me is when it's like, this community came together to raise $500,000 so that this kid could have access to healthcare. And I'm like, yeah, this is heartwarming until you realize that it's a giant flaw in the system.
Right. I think people get really, I think they give men a really big congratulations for like what your dad did and what your husband does, because there's this assumption, oh, she needs to stick by him when something bad happens, when he gets in an accident or something. Mm-hmm. That whole statistic about like men leave when women get cancer, like this whole like, oh, but if this guy stays, he literally deserves the medal.
Oh yeah,
It's so gendered.
So gendered. We were gonna say the same thing.
Yeah.
It really, really is so gendered and so unbelievably frustrating to me because people don't realize how much disability overlaps with every other identity. So there is no such thing as disability existing in a vacuum. I mean, it's one of the only identity groups, first of all, that anyone can join at any time, but it's also one of the only identity groups that can cut across all other identities. And I think we forget that. So it's not just that I'm disabled, it's that I'm a disabled cisgender woman who is subjected to people's, damsel in distress ideas on
Right.
top of their perceptions of me as a disabled person. So nothing about me exists in isolation. And when you take the combination of anyone's identities together, disability is like compounded by every other form of discrimination that people experience.
Right. What other things in your book did you write specifically for disabled people and not for allies? You know what I mean? Like something where you were like, I need to speak to my community.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I try to remind people that even if you're disabled, it doesn't absolve you of the work of being an ally to other disabled people, especially because you don't share their identities and their
Right.
experiences. And, if you've met one disabled person, you've met one disabled person. So the conversation about allyship is really relevant to everybody. But in particular, talking about internalized ableism was something where I was like, hey, I'm talking to you disabled people right now because we do internalize these attitudes that people hold. And then on top of that, we sometimes push them back out into the world. I know that I have been ableist. I don't think that I am somehow, free of that because we're so steeped in it as a society. So for me, a really big priority was reminding people that it is natural to internalize this discrimination that you're experiencing. And unfortunately, it is natural to put it back on other people, but that's where we're responsible for checking ourselves, both in terms of being kind to ourselves, but also in terms of not perpetuating it to other people.
Because it's a community, but not really, because there's specific communities.
Yeah.
People say this about the LGBTQ community, which I do think is fair, where it's like so many different communities that it's hard to say, oh, well, this affected this person, this community, but there's so many like LGB people who don't care about the T. So I'm like, did it affect your community? The idealized idea would be that we're a community, but I'm slowly realizing we probably aren't.
I think that community is a useful umbrella term, but I also think that we can't use it to erase the fact that there's such a diversity of experiences within that umbrella. So it's especially true for disability because I know what it's like to have chronic illness. I know what it's like to use a wheelchair. I do not know what it is like to have Down syndrome.
Mhm.
And I don't know what it is like to have a chronic illness that, impacts my blood pressure, for example, or something like that. I mean, I was just kind of, picking whatever came to mind. I can only speak to my experience, and I don't want anybody to pigeonhole me as being like the representative for an entire community. Nobody is the representative for an entire community.
Mhm.
So yeah, there are subgroups, but at the same time, I also think that that can be like a good thing and a bad thing. A good thing because yes, we need to acknowledge people's individuality and their own particular identities. A bad thing because within the broader umbrella of the disability community, there's so much division.
Mhm.
Like we can't even get our own house in order.
I even did it in the beginning. I was like, well, I was like, oh, well, like I don't have cognitive problems, but I do, which was also a big part of what was hard for me was not being able to find words or not being able to explain something quickly. And so I did that in the beginning where I was like, well, I like put a little bit of a hierarchy. And I think that's like the internalized ableism that then comes out and kind of makes division, that makes each other scary. Like,
Totally.
oh, like you have a facial difference, that's scary. You're schizophrenic, that's scary. There's like, at least I gotta make things good for myself. I can't do a whole thing for you.
Right. There's also the matter of, and I hate to use this term, but the oppression Olympics is a real thing. And
Yeah.
I feel like that gets perpetuated a lot among disabled people, where it's like, oh, you can't walk? Really? Well, I can't eat gluten. And hey, look, I can't walk or eat gluten. So,
Yeah.
joke's on you. I think that too often we're in competition with each other, and we can't even get over that competition before we begin to engage with how society at large thinks about disability. But it's also not entirely our fault, because there's such a scarcity of resources that we're all like, what about us? What about us? What about us? And, us tends to be a very limiting notion when you're like, what about us specifically, these people with this one diagnosis? Won't you just pay
Yeah.
attention to us?
Yeah, of course. They have funding, all that kind of stuff. There's also the opposite thing where I felt the very first thing that happened was years ago, because I also have bipolar disorder. And years ago, someone made a list that was like top 10 disabled YouTubers. And I was on it and I was like, no, 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 no. Like, no, I'm not. That's not what that is. And then even with like the autism spectrum, not that I feel like they're putting it on me, but like almost like I have stolen valor, like where they're like top disabled. And I'm like, no, 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 I'm not. It's not like that.
I totally get that in a way, because I think that people come to me in a sense because I'm like a palatable version of disability to them. Like, I'm the
Yeah.
nice white disabled girl, and I get that. I really do. And I don't deny for a second that I have that privilege that makes me, seem more approachable to people. But the way that I also see it is that it is okay to take up space within an identity, so long as you're using the space that you take up to point people in the direction of other people that they can learn from who share that identity. So to me, I guess I take that more of a big tent approach, in the sense of like, if someone's going to put me on a list of like disabled Instagrammers to follow or whatever, I'm going to be like, thanks. Also, now please go follow these disabled people of color or these LGBTQIA plus disabled people. I can't necessarily control how someone perceives me, but I've learned at least that I can have some say over what that influence does.
Yeah, I guess, I didn't want to take up space, or I didn't want to feel, it was like oppression Olympics in the opposite way, where I was like, I'm fine. Don't worry about me. Like, just, there's other people. Don't worry. I'm fine. Like, no. I don't need the resource. No, it's fine. And then even with the fibromyalgia and the like inability to use my hands, which has been wild, I still am like, it's not MS. You know what I mean? Like, it's fine. It's not ALS. I'm fine. Like, because I think it's not wanting the attention, which is, if for certain disabled people, is inevitable, whether you want it or not.
Totally. I mean, I can't avoid the attention if I enter a room physically in my wheelchair, because I have a giant tank attached to my butt. So, people are just going to look at me. But I also find myself feeling like I struggle with keeping things in perspective for myself. And I was raised to keep things in perspective. So I also fall into that trap of like, well, it could be worse. I could have this experience. I don't have that experience. So I'm fine. Like, it's okay. It's a very natural human reaction. But I try to remind myself that if I'm having that reaction, that it's coming from a place of like, I've been taught to judge other people's experiences.
Yes.
And I'm using them to make myself feel better.
Yes. Or I would have these judgments in the beginning that I'm unpacking now, where it's like, well, my hands don't work, but I figured it out. So like, why are I like resentful? Like, what aren't you doing that I did, or something like this?
Totally.
It's almost like I never did that with money, where I was always like, oh, well, like it's a system and you all this stuff. And then with this, I was like, well, just do the thing just do what I'm doing. And it's like, no, Gabe. You can't, because I go like, just help yourself, this like hyper individualistic, like, okay, I didn't ask anyone for help, so why are you asking me for help? And it's
Yeah.
so toxic.
It also comes up a lot, and this is actually where I think money and disability really come together. Disabled people have what's known as the disability tax, in the sense that we often pay a lot more, whether it's for seeking out support, resources, healthcare, whatever the case may be. And sometimes we get judged for it. So it's like we are trying to help ourselves, and then we get judged for that. And one of the biggest examples of this, silly though it may seem, is disabled people buying like pre-peeled fruit and vegetables.
Oh my God, the judgment of that shit. Because if you don't know who it's for, then you're like, why do people so lazy? Why do they need a pre-peeled blah, blah, blah?
Yeah. And like, look, if you can physically peel an orange,
Incredible for
I am
you.
super happy for you that your hands can do that. But if someone cannot peel an orange and has the financial means to pay for that pre-peeled orange so that they can get the nutrients from the orange, what concern is that to you? And then you're going to turn around and say, well, you're causing the demise of the environment. Like, I assure you that one pre-peeled orange is not what's causing the demise of the environment. Turn your anger to the corporations. Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. I even remember way back in the day when there was Sky Mall on airplanes.
Oh my gosh.
And
Throwback.
it would be like Sky Mall, like a way to put your socks on that you don't even need to bend down. And people would like make fun of that, like comedians and stuff, like, oh, everyone's so lazy. And now I'm like, wait. Wait a gosh darn minute. And also, I used to judge, like, even working retail, you get like an Instacart order for like one item. And I'd be like, oh, really? Like, you have one item? Like, you can't, like, this person's wasting money to get this delivery. Now I like can't use my hands. I'm like, I'm going to need one item sent to my house.
You know, all I ask is that people be thoughtful about the choices that they're making to the best of their ability.
Yeah.
Like, this is going to be a super, super unpopular opinion with people, but if you need delivery because it is what makes your life easier, or because you need a very specific item that may not be readily available to you, use that delivery service. If you have the option of not using the delivery service, go ahead and go to the store. That way, you're kind of freeing up space, if you will, for the people who really need it to be using that service. And people don't love it when I say that, because they're like, oh, these services are for everybody. Or the flip side of that is like, nobody should be using these services. They're unethical. And yes, there are a lot of ethical questions about so many of the delivery services that we use. But I also think that if you're making that decision because it is what your body needs to function in society, you got to take care of yourself so that you can take care of other people and put your work back into the world.
Yeah. In the tax sense, I'm paying $5 more because I need to get it delivered to my house. And, you know, I'm using a paper bag that's 10 cents more or whatever. And if something doesn't seem like it's for you, it's for someone else. Like this one person, when I worked at Petco, this one person would order stuff multiple times a day from the Petco. And I would be like, this fucking guy again. And I'd be like, why is he getting one item at a time? And it's like, well, maybe that's when he remembers. Maybe he has ADHD. Maybe he has, you know, like if he needs 4 deliveries a day, that's what he's doing. Well, what do I care? I don't need to be like, this guy's a wackadoo and lazy.
It's so hard because I actually do think that there's a middle ground between we need to give people grace, and some people do actually just suck and do things irresponsibly. So
I know.
like I'm not like giving people like carte blanche or like making like a blanket statement here about all people.
But Emily, I'm the person who's like, I'm the person who's like giving people benefit of the doubt mostly. Like if someone's speeding, I'm like, well, maybe their wife's pregnant. We don't know. I'm like very like, look, this guy threw something in the garbage. It didn't hit the garbage and he didn't put it up and put it in the garbage. You know what? Maybe he's having a bad day. Like I'm very like that, except for I've got this millennial laziness mindset where it just, they really drilled that into us.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I mean, I really do try not to assume the worst in people.
Yeah.
Because I have had the worst assumed of me so many times as a disabled person. But at the same time, I think that we're all so stuck in some of our toxic mindsets that it's hard for me not to immediately be like, why are you just being a lazy piece of crap right now? You know? And then
against
I have to be
yourself
like,
too.
Yeah. Oh, especially against myself.
Yeah.
Like I'm my own worst enemy with that. You mentioned, you know, the bending down and putting your socks on. I have a thing to help me put my socks on.
Yeah, of course.
And what a gift. But to me, I struggle with the like, am I lazy because I need this sock putter on her, as I call it. And finally, I was like, no, this is an excellent piece of plastic that has come in so handy, and I am so glad that it exists. If you're gonna judge other people, at least don't judge yourself. Like, that's what I'm working on. It's not
That's
judging
huge.
myself.
That's huge. I guess because we talked about the different communities, my final question would be, as a wheelchair user, what is some stuff that you feel people should know, or in your specific community, like in your specific, whether that's wheelchair user or other things, what are some things that you're like, I hope this audience knows this?
I think if I'm answering this in relation to the time that we're in right now, I want people to understand that disabled people, especially, physically disabled people or people with sensory disabilities, show up in different ways to do things that you might expect look a certain way. And so, that sounds a little bit convoluted, but really what I mean to say is, for example, as a physically disabled person who experiences significant sensory overload, I'm not going to be a good person to be in the middle of a chaotic protest. So you probably don't want me there because everyone's going to trip over me. I can't get out of the way quickly. I'm going to be overwhelmed. I'm not going to be contributing that much. So I find other ways to contribute to the work. We need to stop judging people for how they show up and instead ask that they show up in a way that works for them. And that is true of everyone within the disability community. But in my case, when I think about being physically disabled, I know as much as I want to be able to put my body on the line for something, that's not an option for me in most cases. And it's a privilege that I get to say that. And I don't take that lightly. But I want people to know that before you immediately jump to judgment, examine the other ways that somebody is trying to contribute if for some reason their disability precludes them from showing up in a certain way.
You can also provide ideas to them if you want. I mean, look, they
Yeah.
would in LA, you're in a wheelchair, they don't care. They'll shoot you with a pepper bullet. They don't give a fuck.
Oh,
and that
sure.
could hurt you. That could ruin your chair. That could, cause people to go back and try to move your chair and then they get shot. Like it's a whole hullabaloo. I shouldn't even be down there.
Look, I understand that the fact that I am safely in my apartment right now and not at immediate risk and able to say that people should have a choice in how they participate in their resistance is an immense privilege. I understand that. However,
Sure.
I also think that we do a disservice to the movement when we start getting angry at each other for how we show up.
Yeah.
And rather than getting angry, I think you're right about saying, here are some other suggestions for how we can show up. Do you have the financial means? Can you donate? Do you have a social media presence? Can you use that to amplify information? Are you really good at admin tasks? Can you provide that for the work that's being done? Are you someone who doesn't mind picking up the phone and making phone calls? Can you be that person on the phone? Are you someone who can pay attention to reports of where ICE is and disseminate that, but not necessarily put your body on the line? Do that, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think what I want people to know is that disabled people can show up in ways that work for them. And in turn, we can work with disabled people and welcome them into the movement.
Definitely. It's a lot of times it's people from marginalized groups who really want to help. And then it's like the most like able-bodied, like cis, straight, white men in my life are like, what's happening? And then it's like the person who like can't really get out of bed that much is like, I should be on the front lines. And I'm like, classic.
Totally. We do what we can.
But my friend said there's a thing where if you've experienced mistreatment, you have empathy to extend to other people that have experienced mistreatment. And if you haven't, you don't have that.
I think that's totally fair. I think that's honestly a really good note to leave people with, because if you have not navigated any form of oppression or any form of ism or phobia, then you have less awareness of what that experience is like. And I'm not asking you to put yourself in my shoes or put yourself in my wheelchair. I'm just asking you to recognize my humanity. That's all.
Yes, that's a perfect thing to leave with. Do you want to tell my audience how to find you and your book?
Yeah, sure. So I am on all of the interwebs things, basically at Emily Ladau. That's LAD as in dog, AU. You can also find me me on my Substack, which is Words I Wheel By, and my book is Demystifying Disability, What to Know, What to Say, and How to Be an Ally.
Words I wheel by is so funny.
All credit to my mom for that one.
Wow, I love that. Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh. Oh, thank you.
Thank you for listening to 1,000 Natural Shocks, a Bad with Money podcast. This is a noted bisexual production, edited by Allie Mims. Logo art by Dakota Becker. If you like the show, please consider subscribing to the Substack, 1000naturalshocks.substack.com. The Substack has episodes of this show ad-free and also videos and also my original writing. It would mean so much to me if you would subscribe, even as a free subscriber. But a paid subscriber really allows me to keep doing this work, and I can't do it without you guys. Thank you so much. Okay, love you. Bye.